Hello, lovelies. Corey here. Welcome back to my channel. First of all, I missed doing regular videos, but things have been just kind of up in the air for me in my personal practice and in my personal life, as far as, my healing journey is concerned, and just with views and things in general. So I thought, what better way to kind of get back into the swing of things on this channel than to kind of document some of these shifts that are going on, some of these thoughts that are coming up, and just some of the things that I've been doing to make clarity from this mud, as it were. So in this video, really we're just going to be touching on polytheism, views of deity in general, just kind of how my views have morphed over the years to where they are right now, today. Oh, and it's been a long, strange journey, as I'm sure it might be for many of you. So for those of you who haven't followed me for any length of time or have seen my past videos regarding my beliefs and particularly my transition from a monotheistic religion, being raised Lutheran, to actual polytheism, and paganism practices, that's really kind of where it all started. I was raised Lutheran and was pretty active in the Lutheran church and Lutheran community for many years. I still have friends that I made in church, my church days, who I still keep in contact with. These are people I was raised with, and those bonds run pretty deep. Yeah, we may have met at church, but, we're friends out of life. When you've been with someone for that long, you've grown up together, you've gone through that many transitions, some of those friendships tend to stick. And I do have two very close friends that have, come out of that chapter with me, which is really awesome. But my views on deity and divine energy or source energy, however you perceive it, my views on deity differed greatly from those of Christianity and most Christians. I really didn't get the whole one God, one ring to rule them all. Sorry for making that connection, and I mean absolutely no disrespect to any Christians who happen to be watching this video. Hello, how are you? You are welcome. But as a little kid, these were the views that I had, of just this very oppressive energy from God, this, deity that Christianity is centered around. And it didn't sit true for me in my views of deity. But I didn't really quite know what my views were. I just knew that whatever I believed, it didn't align with everyone else around me believed. And that's a hard thing for a kid, even an adult, to go through when you're in a community and you're surrounded by people who think differently than you, who believe differently than you, and they're so invested in their beliefs. And really, beliefs are supposed to be the thing that unites your community together. You really begin to feel like an outcast. You begin to feel like you don't belong here. You start to question yourself. Am I thinking about things incorrectly? Am I just wrong? Why don't I believe the way that they do? And I struggled with that for most of my childhood. Even going so far as to start to kind of look at other religions, asking friends, what do you believe in? What do you practice? And, getting some very different answers based on how they were being raised, right? Again, long, strange journey. When I was first introduced to Wicca, which is my entry point into the overall pagan community, it was a sense of kind of coming home, of finding like, yay, I found my people. But even then, you know, my views on deity have shifted from where they were when I first, you know, made my way to the community. Because most Wiccans, you know, or I guess I should say what was really popular in the 90s was this, you know, diamond view, which was made popular by Silver Ravenwolf. She had documented that in at least 2 of her books. I believe she did mention it in Teen Witch and also To Ride a Silver Broomstick. And that, you know, a description of deity is like a diamond, right? Source energy is a diamond, and each individual, you know, god and goddess or deity is a facet of that diamond, but they're all part of the same diamond, right? And that is considered to be soft polytheism. That while you do connect with and work with different deities, you see them as, you know, different facets or personalities of one singular source. I would say that I shared that view with a lot of folks, but I don't think I ever really fully believed it. There were points in my journey, in, you know, my past, where I think I did believe it, but for the majority of my practice and for the majority of the last 20 years, I don't know that that was something that I really believed. I feel like I grabbed this description, latched onto it, and used it kind of as a life raft to explain pagan views to Christian friends and family who didn't quite understand, what do you mean, like, you work with multiple gods? You know, of, oh, well, we, obviously I didn't speak for the entire pagan community, but kind of saying, oh, well, you know, the way it's described is that, you know, all, again, also using a very popular phrase in the 90s, all roads lead to the divine. And that, you know, you view source energy as a diamond, and each facet of the diamond is a different, you know, deity. So I use that explanation a lot as a teenager and a young adult to try and, I think, convince, you know, family members, friends, you know, existing inner circles, that I wasn't crazy. I hadn't gone off the deep end. Now, paganism, Wicca, and other craft traditions, other nature-based spiritual traditions are really having a moment. You know, there's this resurgence now of people reclaiming traditions, reconstructing old paths and religions, and piecing it together for modern times. Obviously, none of this stuff is actually an ancient unbroken line. We're all reconstructing, you know, from something, right? But especially connecting with Persephone and Freyr, my 2 patron deities, as I have so strongly in the last, you know, 4 or 5 years, I feel very confident in saying, no, I'm more of a hard polytheist, you know? I see each deity as autonomous. They are their own, you know, individual entity, energy. They have their own agendas. They have their own, you know, hopes and dreams. They have their own opinions, which they do like to share often. you know, they're separate and distinct the way that each human being is separate and distinct, you know, and the way that I look at them and interact with them is, yes, you know, just like all of humanity is one, right? We're all connected. All humans are connected. From an energetic level, you know, we are one. And I do actually believe that. We have a very common thread. We're all from the same source. We, you know, hurting another person, it does hurt me, you know, because we are connected, even strangers, on a very, very basic level. But there are degrees of separation. I am my own person. I have my own thoughts, my own hopes, my own desires, my own goals, my own agenda. I believe in, you know, people can disagree with me. That's fine. This is just what I personally believe. That the gods, deities, are just as humans are. Each one is also separate and distinct. And, you know, I feel I, you know, deserves to have my respect in honoring that individuality. And that's how I work with them. I also, you know, looking at the view of having patron deities to begin with, I know there's kind of a, well, really a little bit of a divide in, you know, how deities are worked with, how people connect to deities in the pagan community, because the pagan community is vast. Paganism itself is a very large umbrella term, really referring to any alternative nature-based path or religion that does not, you know, connect with or really is separate and doesn't have anything to do with the Abrahamic religions or other, you know, more monotheistic religions, as it were. And everyone, you know, has their own viewpoint of deity. You could also ask 10 different Christians how they view God. You're going to get 10 different answers. You know, and half of them are going to be, I don't know. Because I kind of feel at heart, most theists have a little bit of, you know, agnostic in them. It's fact, you know, at least if we're self-aware in that we don't know. We don't know. You know, no one can say 100% one way or the other what, you know, divine energy source is. It's almost undefinable. But I know how I have experienced working with deities and the relationships that I've built with them and the ones that I've worked with. And they're very special to me. I also hold a more Celtic and Scandinavian, you know, older pagan view of the deity in that they're not these all-powerful, omnipresent, you know, creators of the universe, in that they have a plan for everything. They, you know, because I'll be honest with you, I don't think they care about everything as much as we like to believe that they do. And that, you know, more of a humanistic view of the gods, if that makes sense. I hold very deep personal relationships with certain deities that I don't hold with other deities. Do I believe that they exist? Absolutely. But I'm not here completely, you know, on my knees worshiping the gods 24/7. To me, these are working relationships that's a two-way street. Am I devoted to my patrons? Yes, that's why they're my patrons. You know, we each, as humans, have special relationships in our own lives as well. My relationship with my husband is not anywhere near the same as relationships I have with my friends. Relationships with friends don't match the relationships that I have with strangers, or matching the relationships that I have with coworkers. And then, you know, narrowing it down in between there. You know, the relationship I have with my brother differs actually pretty dramatically from the relationship I have with my sister. Do I love them both? Yes, absolutely. But those relationships are very, very different. And, you know, what goes into those relationships is different. So the same holds true for my relationships with the gods. There are things that I do in connection with Persephone that I don't do in connection with Freyr, even though both are my patron gods. And I hold more than one special relationship with goddesses. I don't know yet that I would refer to Bridget and the Morrigan as patron deities, but the relationships that I have with those deities are very, very special. More special than relationships I have with other deities. I've worked very, very closely with them for several years. They're very, very precious to me. And, you know, do I have an even more special relationship with Persephone? Yes. But those three deities in particular, the Morrigan, Persephone, and Bridget, have gotten me through some tough fucking times. Super tough. And I don't know that I would be here in front of y'all today if it weren't for them, in particular the Morrigan. So, you know, I think over time I'll start to develop better descriptions for my relationships with deities. You know, recently I've been exploring a lot of pop culture, you know, magic, and really exploring the idea of pop culture deities as well. I feel that there's something there, something tangible to be said about the fact that, you know, we as humans, I believe, have the ability to create gods. You know, gods are born out of culture. They have been for thousands of years. They're born out of necessity. They're born out of certain civilizations, you know, moral codes and ethics. They're born out of a need to come together for specific purposes. Now, whether or not these gods enter the picture when we have a need, you know, see a need, fill a need kind of situation, or whether, you know, our collective energy and call for this being causes it to be born from that energy, I don't know. I can't tell you that. But I do feel like there's something there, especially with, you know, if you happen to be in the US, especially the comic book culture. I really gravitated and latched onto comic books at the same time that I found paganism and Wicca. Now, I was able to dive into comic books before I could really dive into paganism. Ooh, I bought my first comic book. I think I was 11 or 12. I was in 6th or 7th grade, and it was a Witchblade comic book. And from that moment, I was hooked. And I had always been a huge Batman fan. You'll find, family pictures of me when I was like 2 or 3 in these like Batgirl pajamas. My sister wore Supergirl ones. And I really took that to heart a lot more. I think I had probably 3 Batman shirts as a kid that I wore out to the point that they had holes in them. And when I lost one of them, my favorite one, which was it was a portrait of, Batman's, him in his mask, is just as, what's that? Basically just a headshot, right? But it was a gradient from like blue to purple on a black shirt. You guys, the little kid in me is still upset over losing that shirt. I cry. And Batman in general still holds a very, very special place in my heart to this day, at 34 years old. So there's a lot of energy within the comic book community. Superheroes especially. They are, what are they if not modern day gods? Right? If you've ever read Neil Gaiman's American Gods or watched the show, I think you know the point that I'm like coming to with this is that, they are beings with extraordinary abilities, can do things under extraordinary circumstances. And collectively, our energy poured into those beings, there's something there to connect with that being's energy in a manner not dissimilar to the way a modern pagan practitioner connects with their patron gods or with gods in general. I think there's something to that, so I've been exploring it. I've been working and trying to connect with Scarlet Witch and actually working with her as a deity. You guys might think I'm absolutely batshit bonkers. That's fine. I get it. But there's something there, and I'm feeling this pull in that direction. And I'd like to explore it more, because one of the things that comes up in a lot of discussions, and I think I'm not alone in this because of how often I see it come up, is that are the old gods still relevant to our times? A lot of times when we talk about gods, I've fallen into this trap as well. When I've talked about them, held classes on them, we fall into the very old, identifiers and connections for these deities, these old tropes. This is a fertility god. This is a, war goddess. This is a, beauty deity. And you're sitting here going, wait, I personally am not in a war. I don't need any fertility. I'm full up with fertility. I've had my kids. I'm done. I need a bill god. I need I'm tired of dealing with insurance god. I need a mechanic god. I need an electronics god, a god that knows how to fucking deal with computers and fixing them up and dealing with technology. Modern day situations, issues that we all come across, and even deeper than that. I need, personally for me, right now, a PTSD god, a deity that understands, PTSD can help me through being recently diagnosed, help me with not getting triggered while I'm driving and on the road and having a second crash, this time caused by myself. I need gods for modern issues, right? And where I connect with Persephone and the Morgan, the Morgan is a battle god, yes. And not all battlegrounds are fought on the war front. You know, not all battles are fought in a field with swords or with, you know, other weapons. Some battles are fought within. And that's something that she's really helped me with. She has helped me through depression. So I do still think that the old gods are relevant. They have a place in this world. They can help us. Yes, absolutely. But I understand when someone comes to me and says, I don't feel connected to them at all. I don't feel connected to these ancient Greek gods who, you know, that civilization is dust now. At least the ancient civilization from which they were born, right? You know, or I don't really connect with the gods of my ancestors. I don't connect to the gods of the land that I'm living in. You know, these ancient beings who, you know, if we go back and look at the cultures that worked on a daily basis with these deities, they had very deep connections to them. They were there, they were modern, and they were relevant. Well, to me, that's superheroes. If something catastrophic happened tomorrow and humanity was wiped out, and thousands of years later, aliens came to Earth and, you know, started excavating and, you know, digging up all of our stuff, if they found, you know, Marvel films, comic books, they undoubtedly would make assumptions that those were our gods. And that makes sense to me. That lines up. Little kids, their first entry point, I feel, into having idols, looking at, you know, divine beings or superheroes. You know, I watch my son and his deep, deep love for Black Panther, specifically King T'Challa. Watching Black Panther, watching any Marvel movie with Black Panther in it, he is enthralled. And I see that. And I see the way that my daughter looks at Wonder Woman, at Scarlet Witch, and I see my 3-year-old self, right? With those big eyes, watching Batman Returns. Remember, when I grew up, this was the 80s and 90s, you guys. Michael Keaton was my first Batman and will always be my favorite Batman. But seeing that on screen and just, you know, wanting to connect to that person, right? Because Bruce Wayne isn't a real person, right? At least not flesh and blood, tangible. But our collective love and belief in this person, this superhero, the reason why we have to every 15, 20 years make new sets of Batman movies, right? In my lifetime, what, we now have a fifth Batman? 6th, if you count the show Gotham. And those are just the most popular ones. There have been others, you know, and again, just in my lifetime prior to that, you know, you had the very first Batman, whose name I know. I adore this man and am completely blanking on his name, even though he played himself in Family Guy. Help me out, guys. Adam West. Our actual first Batman. On the actual screen, small and large, there have been a dozen incarnations of Batman. Probably over that number now at this point. We keep talking about them. We keep pouring energy into them. We keep writing stories about them. We're writing books. We're writing comic books. it's hard for me to believe, knowing what I know about energy and how energy works, that at this point, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, probably more accurate, millions of people, have poured their energy over the last 70 years into this character. Honestly, this is as close to a modern day born from our society deity as I can think of. I wholeheartedly believe that someone, if they're not feeling a connection to ancient deities, to the pantheons of their ancestors, that working with the Marvel pantheon, DC pantheon, you know, that they absolutely can work with them having a valid pagan practice today. Because these are our gods. But again, this is just my opinion. You can absolutely disagree with me. We can agree to disagree. That's fine. I actually would like to know your thoughts about that in the comments below. I did have a discussion about this more in depth with Sharice Williams over on her channel. This was several months ago. I will post a link to that. In fact, I think we're coming up on a year, maybe, since we had that talk. I'll post the link in the description box below. But, you know, point is, my view of the gods have evolved quite a lot from the time that I was young. And at this point, I think it's pretty safe to say that I'm a hard polytheist. I work with the gods as, you know, beings to have relationships with. There's give and take there. I give offerings in exchange for their assistance. Sometimes they need my assistance. And, you know, I see blessings appear in my life as a result of, you know, doing that work. And I do want to make more videos going in depth about offerings and talking about offerings and sacrifices. Okay, we're not going to be killing anyone ever on this channel, but there's more than one type of sacrifice. There can be a sacrifice of time, right? There can be a sacrifice of something that you love, giving something up in exchange for something better, at least in your opinion, right? Something that holds more value to you. I do want to make more videos on those and really talk about offerings and sacrifices in a way that's not in an ancient context, but also bringing it into a more modern light. Like, for example, in my opinion, a solid sacrifice to Aphrodite could be doing a beach cleanup. The oceans are sacred to her. She was born from them. They're deeply important to her. Aphrodite is a deity that I have been working closely with because of my daughter and how much water energy she carries. I think she would really deeply connect to Aphrodite, so I'm kind of exploring that. You know, my daughter's young, right? I want to follow her lead and help her with whatever comes natural to her, whatever she feels drawn to. But I've been getting a strong tap on the shoulder from Aphrodite recently about that. And so kind of want to also explore that a little bit more. And one of the things that I want to do is, you know, reach out to Think Blue San Diego. I used to do beach cleanups with them and my mom when I was very young. I probably haven't done one since I was 15 or 16. Would love to do that again. It's been way too long. And that is a really great offering and active devotion, I feel, for Aphrodite, and wholly appropriate considering, you know, what is sacred to her and what's important to her. Again, I think climate change and cleaning up our oceans is probably, you know, I say this is a shot in the dark, but this is, based off of my working with Aphrodite. I don't think it's that big of a leap to think that climate change and reversing damage to our oceans would be at the top of her priority list right now. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. But again, that's just me. So, I am probably all over the place in terms of my views with deity, which is very appropriate for this video, considering I've also been all over the place. But you know me, I don't edit these. I love kind of sitting down and just having these chit chats with you guys, sharing my thoughts, sharing what's been in my head. I've been writing down crap ton of notes on this subject in particular, and just how I view them. And really, when I come down to it, at the end of the day, today, right at this moment in time, because it could change later on, I see the gods as very autonomous beings that we can connect with, have really deep, meaningful relationships with, not unlike the relationships that we have with people, and that there's give and take there, right? It's not a one-way street in either direction. I'm not here for gods abusing people, and I'm also not here for, us abusing the generosity of a deity either. They're people just like us. They say no. They can get twitchy. Sometimes they can, say weird shit to you where you're like, I ain't doing that. But we absolutely have the right to refuse to have a relationship with anyone, including a deity. So something to consider, if you have been struggling with your own views and where to place them. And as I had mentioned towards the end of this video, if you're feeling disconnected from ancient pantheons, look around. I have entire bookshelves full of amazing characters. If you feel drawn to connecting with, you don't feel strongly about connecting with Persephone, but that archetype feels very familiar to you, I would say that a modern day fictional Persephone is Daenerys Targaryen. I would ignore what HBO has done with that series and focus on the books as canon for you. But I absolutely do believe that there's something there to be working with her in that capacity. She's a very similar story to Persephone. So if you're looking for something different, maybe with more teeth, someone that you connect with more, look at characters in popular culture that you love, that you feel gravitated towards, that sometimes, in your everyday waking life, you sit there and go, okay, what would Bruce Wayne do? Just using my own personal background as an example. Then that's a relationship that I would explore. Like I said, it's hard for me to believe that millions of people pouring that much energy into an idea, that there isn't something there, an entity born out of that collective energy, that collective love, that, is Batman, is Bruce Wayne, that you absolutely can connect to and have that real interaction and relationship with. Just my opinion. Just one thought of this nutty person right here. So let me know what you guys think. Okay? This is where I stand today. Who the hell knows where I'm going to be standing tomorrow. But again, I do want to have more of these videos chit-chat about, practical applications for craft, modern day relationships with deities, bridging the old world and the new. Yeah, let's look at the reconstruction there and pulling in those ancient ideas. But if they don't work in a modern context, I don't think we should continue to do something just because that's the way it's always been done. I think that's a trash excuse. I also don't think that we should be doing something new just because it's new. I think that there's a balance here to be had, and I would like to do more videos and have discussions with you guys about bridging those two realms. So hope you're here for it, because that's what's coming at you. Again, we'll also be talking, you know, about tarot and pendulums and all that good fun stuff that's probably drew you to here, this channel in the first place. But this is where I'm at this moment in time. Examining views of deity. All right, loves, I'll let you go. Thank you for sitting through this really weird ramble with me about gods. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something. And again, I hope that you do feel open to sharing with me. If not, that's okay too. Absolutely no pressure. And until next time, lovelies, blessed be.